This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the next time TNA book an X Division title ladder match for one of their biggest shows of the year, they'll actually, mention it. Well, the good news this week is TNA apparently remembered that they have a pay-per-view this Sunday that they should probably try hyping up a little bit. The bad news is that I'm working this weekend, and since I'm not entirely sure I'll be able to get this review finished before the pay-per-view airs, I want to keep this one short if I can so I don't have to spend a lot of time editing it. So this will depend on how much I get done on Friday. If I can't get the review uploaded before Slammiversary, I might combine this and the pay-per-view into one video. We'll see. Anyway, this was the Slammiversary go-home show, and since the overall build-up for this pay-per-view has been, shall we say, lacking, for this video I want to focus on just what they did to hype the matches for this show. And we'll just see if TNA managed to get me excited for it. This Magnus Willow segment was probably the best of the night from a promo standpoint. I thought everyone was very good on the mic here, even Willow/Jeff Hardy, which is not always the case. And I have been really liking the storyline up until this point, but they went and fucked it up. This whole thing has been about Bram trying to bring out the old vicious, violent Magnus that he used to know. And we're meant to believe that it's finally happened, that Magnus got his balls back. That's what they say, at least. And I did like that. I like that Magnus says that how he'd been acting for the last 6 months with that whole paper champion act made him sick. That's great. That's what I wanted. But then Willow comes out, and Magnus says that he's going to have Bram backing him up when he faces Willow on Sunday. Now, supposedly, this is the new badass Magnus, but one of the first things he says is that he's probably going to need help to beat Willow. If he's all bad and violent now, like they say, shouldn't he be gung-ho to fight Willow by himself? Then Abyss comes out. Abyss, who, I confess, I did not miss these last several weeks. In fact, I didn't even notice he was gone. There's a short fight. Magnus and Bram get run off, which is, again, not a very badass thing to do. And they retreat to the back, which I thought was the kind of thing Magnus was not going to be doing anymore. There's a lot of flip-flopping going on here. They set up this big character change for Magnus, and then they immediately contradicted it.
Congratulations, you just renewed your idiot license.
And now we know that the match this has all been leading up to is Magnus versus Willow at Slammiversary. A match for which the build-up has been more about Magnus and Bram than anything else. Willow has kind of been a background player in this thing. If this was the end goal the whole time, then I feel like the build-up was focused on the wrong stuff. And I don't like Bram and Abyss being there. I just feel like it's going to be a whole lot of unnecessary, overbooked nonsense outside the ring, distracting from what we should be focusing on. I have liked the storyline until now, but the whole time it really felt like they were building up to something other than this.
This whole show is ridiculous!
There was another bromance menagerie segment about which the less said the better. And thankfully, since according to the TNA website, this feud will not be a part of Slammiversary, I don't have to say anything about it.
Yes!
Unsurprisingly, the best pure entertainment of the night once again came from EC3 and Rockstar Spud. I can't get enough of these two together. Every promo segment they have is fucking gold. And this was another funny one, with them doing a takeoff of the Maury Povich show with Tessmacher. Great stuff. Given the current feud with Bully Ray, I don't know if comedy was necessarily the right way to go. Something more serious probably would have been more appropriate in this case, but it was still funny. Although, there was some glaring revisionist history going on here, with Tessmacher saying that when she was with Bully Ray, there were no other women, even though technically Brooke was the other woman. I guess we're just forgetting about that. But hey, that's understandable. I mean, why should we expect the TNA writers to remember something that they themselves wrote less than a year ago? Plot hole! But you know what? Fuck it, I don't even care about that. Brooke Tessmacher is back as a babyface, and that's a great thing. I was a proponent of her heel turn last year, but that whole thing with her and Bully Ray just didn't work. Brooke is way better as a face, she's more over as a face, that's what she needs to be. This was a good way to reintroduce Brooke if they have a role for her finally, and I sure hope they do, but I feel like it did distract slightly from the Bully Ray stuff. Still, Bully worked that magic that he does and managed to pull the whole thing together in the end. I don't think the Texas Deathmatch gimmick is necessary, but they got the stipulation and the match over, and that's more than you can say about some of the other matches on the pay-per-view card. Kudos. You know, there was actually a pretty good knockouts match happening here. Though you may not have noticed that, because the production guys were constantly cutting to the damn beautiful people at the announce booth for no reason, just so their commentary could distract from all the important stuff going on.
Shut the hell up!
But yeah, this was a nice women's match. I was enjoying the parts they showed up until the stupid finish. And this is probably a dumb question, but since this crap with Stifler just keeps happening, why don't the other knockouts just go to someone in management and request a referee that can actually keep it in his pants? You know, maybe a female referee, which they introduced once upon a time to put a stop to crap like this? Maybe it's just me, but it seems like a #1 contendership match is something that should probably take place a little sooner than the fucking go-home show. Just saying. And I don't know how Brittany qualified for this, seeing as how her current win-loss record skews pretty heavily to one side, but that didn't stop me from wanting her to win this match. I want to see a fresh knockout matchup at Slammiversary a hell of a lot more than I want to see Gail and Angelina rehash a feud that's 6 years old. So of course, Gail wins by pinning Brittany. I understand that there's some kind of story playing out here with Brittany taking so many losses, but in this case I don't care. I just want to see her start winning. Gail and Angelina will probably have a good match at the pay-per-view, but I don't care to see it. I don't even really care who wins. Hopefully they'll involve Brittany in some way, or bring back Taryn Terrell, or do something to inject a little freshness into this division, and if they do, great. Otherwise, if I want to see Gail Kim versus Angelina Love, I'll watch their match from Victory Road 2008, back when I actually gave a crap about this feud.
Oh, my brother! Testify!
The majority of this episode was spent hyping up EY MVP, with the heels putting Eric Young through the ringer to determine who decides the stipulation for the main event this Sunday. I don't know why you want another stipulation when you've got 2 other gimmick matches booked for the pay-per-view already, but whatever. This wasn't really a bad way to go in theory, but with the way the viewership has been tanking for these Eric Young main events recently, spending so much time on this feud probably wasn't the best idea TNA's ever had. Sadly, that's not something they can account for when they're taping so far in advance. Anyway, I thought the opening promo segment was decent, though they were going around in circles for a few minutes when they were talking about whether Eric should wrestle 2 matches in one night or 3. That part could have been tightened up a little bit, I think. The matches were fine for the most part. They managed to squeeze in a little hype for Joe Lashley, which they finally confirmed is happening on Sunday. So this was alright, up until the last match with MVP. First of all, why on earth are you giving away your pay-per-view main event for free 3 days before you want fans to pay to see it? I mean, who in their right mind thought that was a good idea?
You people are fools!
Second of all, you have MVP get himself intentionally DQ'd for really no reason, and then he gets upset when, to the shock of no one, Eric picks a stipulation that he doesn't like. Well, what the hell did you think was going to happen, you idiot?
Ignorance is curable, but stupid is forever.
And third, Eric's logic here makes no sense. He picks a steel cage match, so there can be no interference. But apparently Eric has a short memory because the last steel cage match we had in TNA just a couple of months ago ended in interference. Remember? When Abyss came up from under the ring? I mean, come on, what is it with the writers forgetting details like this all of a sudden? But I guess that doesn't matter because MVP is injured and can't wrestle on Sunday now. And not to sound harsh, I don't like seeing anyone get injured, but I'm not losing much sleep over that because the replacement main event we're getting now honestly sounds like a big improvement. No offense meant to MVP. So that was the go-home show. I thought this episode did a pretty decent job of pulling off some last-minute hype for the pay-per-view when I watched it, But now that I've gone over it again, I think the build-up here left a lot to be desired. At Slammiversary, we have something TNA never bothered to actually mention, a multi-man X Division title ladder match between 6 random guys who haven't even been feuding. Well, where the fuck did this match come from? Why are the Wolves in there when they should be defending the tag titles? Why were they teasing a feud with King and Lashley if TNA were just going to put them in this match instead? How did Crazy Steve of all people get into a title match when he's only had 1 match in TNA so far, which he lost?
He's crazy.
That doesn't count. Where was all the hype for this? Oh, that's right, there wasn't any. Really? You couldn't take the Bromance Menagerie stuff off this show and use that time to hype this match instead? You couldn't take 5 seconds to at least mention this match in passing at some point during the month and a half you had to build up to this pay-per-view? Well, that tells you everything you need to know right there about how much this match really means.
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Austin Aries versus Kenny King, which had no build-up this week. Aries wasn't even on the show. And since the MVP heel turn, Kenny has been teasing a feud with the Wolves. So it's almost like this came out of nowhere. I'm sure it'll be a great match, but this one feels rushed and thrown together last minute at best. James Storm versus Ken Anderson, which also had no build-up this week. Though I doubt that would have helped much, since these guys are feuding for no concrete reason that I can see, and I don't think one more week of hype would have changed that. I expect this will be pretty good, but there's nothing really compelling about it. They're just fighting for the sake of fighting. Gail Kim versus Angelina Love in a match I don't care about, which is supported by a storyline that has been splitting its focus between the beautiful people, Gail, and 2 women that aren't even involved in this match. It seems a bit counterproductive when you're building toward one thing while focusing on another. Just saying. In that same vein, we have Magnus versus Willow, culminating a storyline in which Willow has felt like a supporting player to the drama going on between 2 heels, only one of whom he's wrestling here. The other's going to be fighting Abyss at ringside, and that'll most likely lead to a lot of irritating overbooking in this match if history is any indication. There's Samoa Joe versus Bobby Lashley, and I guess they're banking mostly on name value to sell that one, since Joe just came back and there's been practically no build-up for it. I wasn't even sure this was going to be a Slammiversary match until they fought for about 20 seconds this week. They had a Bound for Glory match a few years ago where Joe basically got fed to Lashley, much to the live crowd's displeasure. I am hoping for a different outcome this time. Bully Ray versus EC3 in a Texas death match. Despite them maybe overdoing it a little bit with the comedy, this one was built up nicely, I thought. Looking forward to Bully Ray getting his much-deserved comeuppance. Hashtag justice for EC3.
Yes! 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 Yes!
And the main event is now a triple threat cage match with Eric Young facing the winners of Joe Lashley and King Aries, which is cool with me. I prefer that to EY versus MVP, to be honest. That'll probably be a much better match, and EY MVP never interested me that much in the first place. There's going to be no build-up for it, obviously, but that couldn't really be helped in this case. Also, the Von Erichs are going to be there. As of right now, I have no idea what they're going to be doing, who they're going to be wrestling, or even if they're going to be wrestling. And I don't know any of this because TNA did not think it was important to actually tell us any of this. Wow.
You have no idea what the right decision would be.
There were some good matches, promos, and segments on this Impact, and Slammiversary does look like a pretty good card on paper, but that only means so much if you don't have a lot of substance behind it, and this just doesn't. Overall, I think the hype for this pay-per-view has been very shoddy. The matches may deliver, but they're not going to mean what they should. And for one of your biggest shows of the whole year, that is unacceptable, TNA. Plain and simple.